Ty the Tasmanian Tiger is a platformer series developed by Chrome Studios, with EA handling the publishing of their games. You might also know them for the Legend of Spyro trilogy, which are the best Spyro games in the series, don't at me. They also made a pretty decent Jimmy Neutron game, and also handled several of the ports of the Force Unleashed. They definitely created a decent amount of games. Ty the Tasmanian Tiger is probably the most well-known work. The first Ty the Tasmanian Tiger game was released in 2002, and it was really hyped up back then, especially commercials. One of them had Crash, Spyro and Sonic at the hospital, while here he was walking around and scaring them as the new platformer king in town. This is a really funny commercial looking back, like they were really confident that this series was beating everything else. But honestly, I like it. I think it's actually pretty cool to see a new IP be so confident in their work. And to be frank, Ty did pretty well. The first game selling over 1 million units, which is really good for a B-grade studio. And they also made multiple sequels that also did pretty well, and then nothing. The series was just dead. But not because of lack of funding, lack of interest from Chrome or EA. They were just busy with other projects. Again, they were working on the multiple Force Unleashed ports on the PS2, Wii, DS and the PSP. That's a lot of work. So it makes sense why they didn't have time to make a new Ty game. But it did later on make a Ty 4, and of course, just a couple of years ago, made a HD remaster of their first game, and then as years went by, the other ones as well. My experience with Ty came with the second game on the PS2, and I played that one a lot, and I loved it so much, even considering it one of my favorite games ever made. I would not play one until much later with the HD remaster on the PS4. This video will mainly focus on Ty 2 Bush Rescue, but I will also talk a bit about my thoughts on Ty 1, just so you guys understand what I feel about it. Ty 1 is just okay. Or that was my thoughts when I first played it a few years ago. I thought the game was fine, but didn't leave much of an impact. Not bad, just okay. But replaying this game again for this video, I like it a lot more now. I think replaying it has maybe appreciated it a lot more. The story of Ty 1 is that long ago some Tasmanians were defending some talisman from the evil Cass. They managed to destroy his robot and hide a talisman from him, but now they're stuck in this space-time vortex. With the talisman still out there, Cass is looking in every corner in order to find them and harness their power so he can become the leader in all of Australia. We found this all out by Ty falling into a hole and stumbling upon a cave with a bunny elder telling me all this. I do really like the setup for this story. It's simple, but it works. The main goal of the game is to collect these thunder eggs so this character named Julius can use his device to find a talisman, which results in fighting against the bosses. And the other collectibles in each level are used in order to get more thunder eggs. And yeah, this game is pretty much a knockoff Banjo-Kazooie, but that's not a bad thing, as Ty still has his own flair and of course charm. The characters and personalities are so charming. I love the dialogue between the characters. Mori is definitely my favorite. He's like an Australian boomer who doesn't understand technology. His interactions with Ty are so good too.
I found you a second boomerang. That's great. Where is it? See that tree over there? Yeah? Well, it's not there.
I like Jules too being the scientist koala, making all your boomerangs and helping you to get all the talisman. Ranger Ken is pretty awesome too. He's like this big dude that has a heart of gold. He also has the best cutscene in the game.
On your mate, you did it.
Sasha was pretty charming too. I find it really cute when she calls Ty Possum. I don't know why, but it's just really funny to me. But I can't talk about characters without mentioning Boss Cass, who I found a very solid antagonist. He is the more over-the-top comedic bad guy, but he works so well for this game. They also managed to get some really funny scenes out of him.
How hard can it be? It's just a little orange rat.
Now, Chrome Studios is an Australian studio, which means everything in this game is Australian as fuck, and I love it. All the characters have Australian accents with Australian slang, and it just amuses me so much. The same can be said for the environments, taking inspiration from Australian wildlife and the environments. We get beaches with sharks in the water, rainy forests with mud everywhere, snowy mountains with frozen water, and the orange mountains with huge hogs. Not sure if the huge hogs is a thing, but I mean, it's Australia. I mean, what would be a thing there, right? By the way, Outback Safari is the best level in the game because it makes you feel like a hog rider. The music also pretty good for the most part. I think the more chill tracks are great. Outback Safari is my favorite track in the game. It is such a good listen. When the game turns to have more techno music or be dramatic, it kind of fails for me. Like, I think it just sounds bad in some cases. The worst music is definitely the time trials. Like, I just do not like these tracks at all. But overall, I think there are more good tracks than bad in this game. But the same can't be said for the bosses, unfortunately. I really only liked one of them. The rest was either just too boring or just annoying to fight against. The shark boss I liked because it was interesting and was decently challenging. The hog boss was so annoying. I could not for the life of me get it to hit the pillars. It dragged on for so long until I finally beat it. It wasn't really hard, just very clunky. Fluffy's boss was okay, you know, it was fine. He had some different phases. At least it was a bit more challenging than others, but it still wasn't anything remarkable. And the final boss was so easy, although flying the explosive boomerang was really annoying and it felt like it really dragged on. I like how you get this boomerang from Sly, by the way. Oh yeah, I didn't mention him. He is essentially working for Cass. Ty and Cass even fight each other at one point, which is just like these Sonic versus Knuckles fights in Sonic Adventure. But then they meet again, Ty hits him with his boomerangs, but instead of falling into lava, Ty saves him. And then Sly just becomes good at the end and like out of nowhere. I can't tell if this was meant to be genuine or stupid, but I just can't take this part of the game seriously anyway. The levels in the game is also a bit of a hit and miss, but again, mostly hits, I would say. One of my favorites being Bridge on the River Ty. It starts out linear, but then it opens up to be more open. But this level feels great and not too big. And I also love the atmosphere here, and again, the music is really good. But there are a handful of bad ones in my opinion. Like Shipwrecks is okay, but not that fun to be honest. It just feels a bit too long, way too open, making it hard to find all the collectibles. But Rex marks the spot, takes that and times it by 5. It felt honestly exhausting to play this one due to it being the biggest level in the game. Not a fun time, and again, finding the last collectibles here is a nightmare. And Snow Worries, it's too long, man. And all this ice can go and suck a crikey for all I care. But the rest of the levels are good and fun. So overall, Ty 1 doesn't do anything special that I haven't seen from other platformers, with the exception being its setting. Ty's controls are responsive, the levels are mostly good with some exceptions. The game looks pretty okay for a PS2 game, but most of all, it has charm and heart, which is why I like it. I can overlook some of its issues and problems because I find it overall an endearing experience. It might not be the next Super Mario or Donkey Kong, but it doesn't need to be. All it needed to be was being itself, and that for me works. Ty 1 is definitely a solid experience I can recommend to people, especially for how cheap it is on Steam, only costing $10. But Ty 1 was just the appetizer. We are here to look at its sequel, Ty 2 Bush Rescue. Now this is the one I grew up with as a kid, and I have so many fond memories of it. It was one of the earliest PS2 games I ever played, and now it's time to look at it again and share why I like it so much. So without hesitation, let's get into it. The game opens up with Ty and Sasha driving alongside Ken and the Kiwi pilot. They have gotten an emergency call that a lot of lizards are attacking the civilians. This game wastes no time throwing Ty into the action. Like immediately you just thrown into the action. A bunch of lizards are attacking the town and its citizens, and Ty has to stop them with the help of Sly and his girlfriend. This is such an amazing open level and such a different contrast to Ty 1's opening. Buildings are on fire, enemies are shooting with cannons, and it's just constant explosions. But later on things get even cooler when you unlock a red bunyip to control, and it's freaking awesome. I have so many memories for this level, and there's a good reason for that. It's just generally really fun. And by memories I also mean it took me way too long to beat this turret section when I was younger. This one brave koala crashed on the ground and almost dies, leaving Ty to be the one to finish the job.
On there! You little beauty!
But playing it nowadays, the turret section is actually not hard at all, but it's still really fun. You get to shoot at these dropships and giant robots. It makes you feel so awesome. But at this point, we are also chasing a character named Fluffy. She works for Cass, and being here means that something bad is going to happen. Chasing her to the top of the prison, she spawns these big lizard monsters while you have to also fight her. A pretty fun first boss fight. I always try to destroy everything in the environment, like all the trees and everything, just to make it completely clean. Like, I don't know why, it's just really satisfying to me. But after beating her, she shoots a helicopter, and Ty, with his noble heart, decides to save the guys from the helicopter crash, but by doing so, Fluffy escapes with Cass. Wop wop. A couple of weeks later, we are downtown, and now we established a new organization called Bush Rescue, an organization that is built on helping people in need. They have found Cass' location, but due to him having been moved to a country with different laws, he got diplomatic immunity, so they can't arrest him. I love this plot, it's just so stupid, but in such a charming way, I just can't get over it. So for now, they just have to deal with other problems around the town. The Bush Rescue headquarters ask as your spawning point whenever you load up the game again. In comparison to the Rainbow Cliffs from Taiwan, I think this place is visually much more interesting. Rainbow Cliffs looked nice, but it always felt really uninteresting, while Bush Rescue I found just much better. Now when it comes to Ty's moveset, it's pretty identical to first game, which I'm really glad for because he felt very responsive to control. Ty does actually have a bite move, which does more damage than your standard boomerang. It is also used to bite his cameras to reach high areas. But his main source of attack will be from his boomerangs. I always love the sound of the boomerangs when you throw them. They really nail the sound. You can also grind in this game, which is fun to do, although it is very underused in this game. I can only really think about one mission where it's mandatory to grind. But playing in 60 FPS feels even better. Like, going from the PS2 version to this, it is such a nice upgrade. It really makes the gameplay feel so much smoother. I always love when Ty is gliding down, he stretches out his boomerangs, which also creates these white lines around him like he was in some form of anime. He can also use his boomerangs to lift himself up from a ledge, which I always found very responsive. But of course there's also time we can explore, though to get there we have to get through this tunnel, but we have to wait for it to load, so we're stuck here for like 10 seconds or more. Oh wow, it's already done? That was way quicker than expected. No, like all the loading times within areas are cut by so much that sometimes it's barely a second before they open the door. This is another huge plus to the remaster as they cut loading times. Although it is weird seeing the opals coming out of the red hydrant in the middle and just seeing 1 or 2 spawn before it's over. It's very surreal. It's like playing Crash right out of Cortex, just the load times lasting like a half a second. It will just feel so unnatural in a way. The town is just a great place for exploring around and getting used to the controls as well as platforming. And the characters we meet are also really fun. Like there's this one bird guy who is telling stories to his kids, but all of them are always fake. It's actually really funny how this character was actually used in the first game. He was used in one of the levels where he would lie to you on where to go. And I find it funny that he's just back here just doing the same thing, just making up these stories and lying. But damn, this guy, he yaps so much. Like there's many fake stories he could tell.
And he was jumping all over me from paper mache and pieces of old gumboots. My way through 600 and tie down. You know, stop him from blubbering like a baby. The color yellow is in fact a shade of blue. The holes in Swiss cheese, the number 72, and
Shut the fuck up!
But while I do love exploring town and walking around, I do think it gets a bit annoying when everyone constantly says hi to you over and over again. And oh my god, there's this one resident that's just so freaky. It's like this monkey with his very long arms, who sounds like this for some reason.
Ooh, I am Polly, you are Ty. Ooh.
That's a skinwalker if I ever saw one, and she has come to reap our souls. There's also this really cool ghost house on top of the hill you can go to, and a sewer, both having missions to complete. The ghost house having this dickhead walking around annoying the ghost, and the sewers having crocodiles to defeat. It's also where we have 3 different shops to go to. The first one is from Ty's parents, where you can buy different boomerangs. All the previous ones from Taiwan are here, and they are as fun as ever. There's a freeze rank that freezes things, there's a fire rank that burns things, a zap rank that electrocutes enemies, which is also really good against certain enemies. The lash rank makes you able to shoot a rope boomerang that will let you able to swing from certain spots. While they don't do much damage, they can actually damage enemies. Plus, it is really funny seeing them spin around. The info rank will make you able to see things from far away and reveal secrets, like certain collectibles and such. There's also this camera rank where if you throw it at enemies, it will actually stun them completely. And I don't remember this from the PS2 version, I think there's actually a new one in the HD remaster, but it is really fun to use too. The mega rank makes you able to throw boomerangs that bounce off from one enemy to another. It is really fun to use. And lastly, there is the Smasherang. It does more damage and can destroy these metal crates. The second shop you can visit is this guy who sells you licenses to use several bunyips. These are used on certain missions and to progress through the story, so you need to buy this at some point. The last shop has this crow lady selling some maps that can reveal all locations of a certain collectible, which can be very helpful. The town is great, but there's of course more to explore on the outside. On the outside, you can drive around this orange car to get to other locations and solve more problems. And the driving does actually feel pretty good. It has a nice speed and a proper weight to it. Ty will also stand in the back and throw boomerangs that will explode. Several parts of the map are locked away, however, until you do more missions. The game is structured where the more missions you do, the more parts gets open. I do really like the structure, as it would have been very overwhelming from the player if everything was unlocked from the start. So slowly opening up more and more makes it easy for them to get accustomed to the map. There are a lot of really cool locations to go to, but unlike in Taiwan, none of the levels are way too open, or way too big to say. Instead, most of them are linear, with the beach being an exception, but it's a lot smaller and way more fun to walk around. Throughout the game, when doing missions, Mori will contact you either to give you new missions or to remind you to finish the last one he just gave you. These are usually the main missions. A lot of the missions are really fun to do. One of my favorites was the movie studio one, where Bush Rescue gets a call of actors getting attacked by some ninjas, and after Ty defeats them, it turns out they were all just stuntmen and they were never in real danger, and Ty, he gets scolded for it. And then it happens again, and he gets even more scolded for it. And then a third time they also get a call, but this time it's actually serious. What I do love about this part of the mission is that Ty is being so snarky here, almost walking away with the way they treated him before.
You have to help us.
Let me think about it.
Some of the missions will make you travel to small locations that don't have anything else to do other than the mission itself. But there are also a bunch of spots that have their own levels to explore. This is where Tai 2 shares the most similarities to 1. All these type of levels have some form of missions to do in them, alongside collectibles to collect. Opals used to be a collectible in Taiwan with a certain amount in each stage, but now they're used as a currency, which in my opinion is a much better change. The main collectibles you will be doing here are the chromium orbs, which are used to reveal locations of other collectibles in the game by the bird lady. These great creatures that are called bilbies, I'm not really sure how to pronounce them, but I'm just gonna call them billies. My favorite part when fighting one is that sweet little tune you get. The white cogs, which are used to unlock the licenses to use the other bunyips, as well as the cosmetics for Ty and the car. There is also this picture frames you collect, which are used to unlock concept art, which I honestly find a pretty lame reward. Though while collecting these are fun, I do think Ty 2 does suffer from where the hell is that last collectible syndrome. You know what I mean, when you can't find that last thing to collect, so you start running around spending a lot of time trying to find it. But Tom, I hear you say, did you just not say earlier you could collect ore to reveal the location of certain collectibles? Well, yes, but this does not include the picture frame, which are the easiest to miss, and there's a lot more of them to collect compared to others. Now, there are actually some more things to collect in the game, I guess. The other thing to collect is to find the 25 spies in disguise as these koalas. As a kid, I never understood what this was. I really thought these were just regular guys I had to find, but nope. Turns out there's a mission you have to unlock by using the info rank to reveal the disguise and to knock them out. And finally, I can't mention collectibles without talking about my absolute favorite character in the game, Mother Flippin' Steve. I love this character so much. Every time you find him in a secret spot, he just starts rambling on about such nonsense. But it's so endearing to me, and it just gives you a lot of money.
Someone told me this one during a hailstorm under a rusty tin roof. It was loud, and I couldn't hear very well, but it sounded something like this. Blah, 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 chicken, blah, 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 bicycle, blah, 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 blah. Excuse me, blah, 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 huge redback spider. And I said, blah, 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 close the blah, blah, down the door. That cracks me up every time. Here, have some opals.
If more people were like Steve in this world, the world would have been a better place. Now, speaking of characters, the cast of Tai 2 is pretty much the same from the first game. I really liked them in the first game, and here it's no different. I think it is interesting how Tai seems like the type of character based on the trailer, like such a cool, confident dude, but he is really not like that. He is actually super nice and sometimes a bit socially awkward, but he can also smack back at the person if they deserve it.
G'day, I'm here to fix your car.
You took your time. I could have grown a spark plug in the time it took you to get here. There you go. Good as new.
Well, I doubt that. Anyway, at least I can get to Burramudgee now.
You wouldn't want to miss your Whingers Anonymous meeting.
He really wants to help people and be a good role model for others. Like I said earlier, most of the cats stay the same, but there is one exception, which is Sly, who has become a good guy and with a new voice, which I think sounds way better than he did in the first game.
He's smarter than I thought.
Hey bro, what can I do for you?
Now, in terms of graphics, I think Tie 2 looks pretty alright. The environments looks nice, character models looks decent, and the animations are solid. This is definitely a big upgrade from the first game. Tie 1 still looks fun to this day, but some characters do, they just look dead with a never-ending expressions. But in Tie 2, it's a lot better. Tie, for example, he barely changed his expressions in the first game, but here we get so much more out of him. And of course the HD version helps making the game look a bit smoother, but even on the PS2, this game looks pretty decent. So after helping others and just driving around, we get a call that Fluffy has been spotted at the end of the map. And going there, Ty confronts Fluffy, but she doesn't fight him. Instead, she sends out her secret weapon, a mechanical dinosaur, and it looks cool as fuck. The boss is not hard though, but it's still very fun. The more you damage it, the more attacks it gets. It's pretty cool. After defeating it, we get another cutscene of Cass alongside the assistant using a machine to something. It's not completely clear yet what it's being used for, but they have kidnapped this poor koala guy, so that means that something bad is about to happen. And after defeating the boss, more areas has been unlocked, like the beach, which I mentioned earlier, is one of my favorites in the game, and you can also get to Sly's house. I always loved climbing up Sly's house, it always looked so cool. And now Sly does offer something amazing, being even more boomerangs, but these are essentially much better versions than the ones you already have, and they are just so amazing. The lava rang and freezing rang sends out a circle which either freezes or burns everyone around that area. The thunder rang is one of my favorites. Instead of just sapping one enemy, it creates a ball of lightning and does multiple hits on multiple enemies. Even Zeus would fear the sight of this being used. The warp rang is exactly like the latch rang, but it makes you able to attach to these purple rocks, which makes you able to get to areas you will never be able to reach otherwise. You can also kill bigger enemies with it, and it looks pretty cool. The X rang, unlike the infra rang, you don't have to look for the boomerang to see hidden things, which was very helpful. We can also unlock the Kaboomerang, which has such an amazing name. You throw your boomerangs and it explodes. The Omega Rang is the Mega Rang, but better. You can fire many more at once and it just annihilates entire armies. It is crazy fun to use. You also of course have the Multi-Rang, which replaces your normal boomerangs with multiple of them, so you can throw 8 at once. It is insane how many you can throw at enemies. It is just absolutely bonkers. The Deadly Rang is, well, deadly. These explode on impact, but you can shoot 2 at once with them having so much longer range. One of the last ones you can unlock is also the Doomerang, that lets you control the rang and it explodes. Again, it is also really good when you want to get rid of a skinwalker.
Copy that, Delta. I see the target now. Target successfully eliminated. Wait, what the fuck?
Now you might be saying, oh wow, it can't get any better than this. Well, that's where you're wrong, because there's still one more boomerang to unlock. One that was added to the HD version. An absolute unit of a boomerang. The Crafty Rang. Wow, that looks like a pile of shit. Okay, yeah, at first it does seem like the Crafty Rang does suck. First off, being extremely cheap, only 50 opals. And second, it has terrible range, barely reaching a few meters. And when it hits the ground, it takes 8 seconds for it to respawn back to you. It is not as easy to use as other boomerangs, but it is actually useful. Surprisingly enough, it does the same amount of damage as the Deathly Rang. It can hurt enemies that only the boomerangs that explode otherwise can. It also has a bit of splash damage, so if lumped together, can actually kill multiple enemies at once. I was going to make a whole joke hyping this up and then showing it's just useless, but the more I play with it, the more I realize it's actually useful. Surprisingly pretty good for something that's just made out of popsicle sticks. That's pretty much all the boomerangs you can unlock in the game. The ones on Sly can cost a hefty penny, so you're definitely going to need to grind for money. Money can be cheap by finding them in money banks around the levels, doing missions, or doing kart races. So I haven't mentioned this before, but Tai 2 has a Mario Kart-esque minigame. There are multiple tracks around the overworld to race, and to be honest, I don't like it much. I never liked kart racing in platformers like this, as you could always tell they were always half-assed. Like, it's not bad, but just not fun enough for me to want to play it more. It's fine, I guess, but I just don't find it interesting. But I mean, hey, at least it's better than Mario Kart World. I mentioned earlier that you could unlock some extra bunyups to use from the shop with the grey cogs. You already have the red one, which can be used in some levels, but another one you can unlock is the Thermo Extreme. It can swim through extreme temperatures such as lava, can softly fly down and shoot water out of its cannons to put out fires or to defeat enemies. It's very fun to use, one of my favorites. The other one you can unlock is the Lifter Bunyip. It's a bigger version of the standard red one, but you can't jump with it and it's much slower. However, you can lift heavy objects and throw them, so that's pretty cool. I think it is overall okay, but I wouldn't say it's that fun to use, although I did like some of the missions revolving around it. When a woman was about to go to labor, we need to clear the road for the couple. Don't worry guys, I'll get this done in no time. You guys can wait 3 hours, right? There are also other vehicles you'll be using during some missions. These are very different, revolving around either being in a helicopter or submarine. You can shoot boomerangs to attack enemies, which again explodes. I do actually really like these missions, especially the helicopter missions, but my favorite part about these missions is the remix of the Ride of Valkyries. At this point, I think it's time to move on with the story. The factory near the beach has been invaded by Cass goons, so now we have to put out the fires and stop them. Now, funny enough, as a kid, I never got to this part. So here's a little history of me. As a kid, I would always be careful with my games, and 95% of them would work. But for all my PS2 games, there were 2 games that just did not properly work at some points. First one being Madagascar, which was a really fun game, and the second being Tai 2. I was so sad when it happened. I only beaten half the game, but I could never see the end. That is until a couple of years ago when I replayed it. I definitely would have loved this level as a kid because it's a really fun level. I love how it gets harder to see due to all the smoke, and seeing these new enemy types, these tall lanky lizards spitting fire, was really awesome. But at the top of the level, Fluffy is there yet again, and like last time, she has no time to fight us, so she sends out the yellow robots built on ice to send Tai away. And this is where we get our next boss fight in the game, and honestly, it's my least favorite. It's not bad, but I just feel like this one drags on too long. Every time you attack the enemy, you have to wait for it to bundle together so you can attack it again, and it takes time. It's at least more challenging than the first one, but still not really a fun fight. But I did like the reference to Terminator 2 though, so that's cool. After beating it, Tai and gang are back in Bruce Rescue, discussing what happened in the factory and why Cass goons were there. They know that nothing was stolen except for one container that Jules made a while ago. It's apparently very important, and now Cass has it. And right after, we just see what Cass has been planning. By using the Julius device in these koalas, he can turn his normal goons into much stronger monster goons, which is how this new type of enemies were spawned. But now there will be more of them, so again, that's not good. We also get some new levels to explore, and now the whole map is pretty much open. The remaining levels to talk about are the dinosaur level, a level with dinosaurs. Go figure. This was such a cool level. I really liked the look of this, and it had some really fun quests, like helping this alien guy retrieve an item, and he is weird.
Hey, Tai! My friends call me Snappy.
G'day, Snappy. Okay.
There is also another one in the end where you have to platform through these rocks to find a lost alien. In this level, you can even find dinosaurs to attack. Yeah, get wrecked, scrub. Yeah! And the last level to enter is the Swamp Park level, and this is probably my least favorite in the game. It's not bad, but I just kind of find it a bit boring. The main goal of the level is to turn on all the generators to power up the park again. It's a short level at least, but it's just not really that fun. I dislike how foggy it looks here. It makes it look really unappealing to me. I also had the hardest time finding some of these collectibles in this level. Like, some of them I could not figure out for the life of me how to get. Overall, a disappointing level, but hey, at least it's short. Okay, I actually lied. There is actually another level to talk about. I just kind of forgot about it. This is another swamp level, but this one is actually pretty fun. It's just another good and fun level to me. I also like in the end where the main mission is to hoard all these white crocodiles back to their home. It's pretty neat. So with that covered, it's time for the next boss in the game. And this time, Fluffy actually fights against you, using her mech like before. During this level, you'll be on top of the platform and try to knock her down. But she can also knock you down using her laser. But she also has some big robots around her that can heal her, so you have to destroy them so they can't heal her anymore. It is actually a really fun fight. I did really like this one, and I thought it was pretty cool to properly fight her again. Ty managed to beat her, but she still tries to convince him to join Cass. But Ty is like, nah fam, I'm all about that bush. Wait, that sounds kind of wrong. She then escapes by jumping in the water. During the fight, Ty also managed to collect a tube that can be used to make a special bunyip, and it also contains encrypted data that could give Bush Rescue a clue on where Cass is hiding. You know, I just realized, I haven't really talked about the music much at all in this game. I do like the soundtrack, but I also do think there's a handful of tracks that are forgettable. I really like the more chill tracks like Bush Rescue and the Town's theme, both having very nice vibes to them. There is also this one track that only plays in one cave in the game, and I really like this one for some reason. The beach theme is much more upbeat, but I do really like it. Makes me really want to swim around the place. But my absolute favorite track is the theme of Ty wandering different places. It is so good. There are also some more good tracks here and there, but otherwise, I think the rest of the soundtrack is just kind of like, okay, you know. I feel like the soundtrack is its best when it's more relaxing and chill, but overall, it is good stuff. But we are at the end game now, and thanks to Julius, he has not only found out Cass' plans, but also his location. But Cass attacks Bush Rescue, and downtown he has kidnapped every single civilian to power up his army. On our final mission, both Sly and Shasha will join you, which is pretty cool. Thanks to the Kiwi pilot, they use the ramp and fly off. After a while, they're almost ready to land, but they're not going there without any weapons. They'll use their bunyips. Sly has even one he made himself, and it looks pretty sick. Too bad that Ty just comes with a much cooler one right after.
Is that a shadow bunyip?
Sounds like you've got bunyip envy, Sly.
I just feel so bad for Sly, dude. Like, he has been spending so long creating this special bunyip, and Ty just shows up with one that's just better and cooler. The Shadow Bunyip is definitely the best bunyip in the game. It moves like the red one, but you can jump very high with it, and you can shoot projectiles. You can also hold the charge button and shoot a laser. Like, this thing is insanely cool, and so is the rest of the level. The enemies have these laser turrets they use, and many more tough enemies, like this robot that takes a lot of hits. You also refight some of the bosses like the Cyber Dinosaur or the Yellow Ice Robot, which I found pretty cool. They are basically throwing everything at you, which makes it so much more tense. This is easily one of my favorite parts of the game, but getting through the level, we are finally at the end, now facing against the main antagonist, and it's a pretty cool fight. He will use similar technology like the Yellow Eyes from earlier in order to create a robot. It's definitely the most challenging fight in the game, because he can easily knock you out of the stage if you're not careful enough, and his attacks can be tricky to react to, but once you get rid of the boss, you can knock him around. But in the end, Ty defeats him and he's on the ground, trying to make a deal for them to join him, but that's not going to happen. But his assistant is still on the loose. I wonder if he will play a big part in Ty 3. And so with Cass defeated, the town is safe, and so is the rest of the world. And with that, Ty 2 is finished, and to this day I still think the game is fantastic. Like, I won't lie, it's not as polished as its competition. There are definitely some things here and there that could be done better, but overall I definitely think Ty 2 is still a great game. It's got fun characters, really fun gameplay with a lot of fun missions, a unique visual style, and most of all, a big charm that I can't get enough of. I would definitely say this is one of my favorite 3D platformers. It is still such a fun game after all these years later. At this point, I tried to complete it 100%, which I did, but unfortunately, you don't really get an extra reward for doing so, which I find really disappointing. So with that, I thought there was nothing more to do, but there was actually one more thing. A challenge that's been added in the HD version. A hardcore mode. Now, I thought first, oh, so it makes the enemies do more damage and maybe you have less health. Okay, that sounds cool, but no. This mode entails that if you die at any point in the game, doesn't matter if it's 5 minutes in or 10 hours in, you have to start all over to the very beginning. I can't stress enough how poorly implemented this mode is and how disappointing it was. I really thought it would make the enemies tougher and be a proper challenge. Having it just be a don't die mode is so lame. It doesn't work well for this game because the game is clunky in some areas. It is very easy to just die randomly out of nowhere. The game also wants you to do this while 100% completing the game. Again, this is so dumb. Why is this a thing? Why do I need to do it again? I already done it once. Why do I need to do it again? I tried this mode. It wasn't worth it. I couldn't get past a certain point and I just gave up because I'm not spending a lot of time on this. At least not for now. So that mode left a sour taste in my mouth, but hey, it's an optional challenge, so it's not a huge deal. At this point, you might be thinking we're done with Tide 2, but not quite yet, as they also released a Game Boy Advance port as well. This game plays very differently, being in 2D instead, due to, you know, being on the Game Boy Advance. A lot of platformers during this era got a handheld port of the main console game, like Rayman 3 and Rayman Rabbids are good examples of this. The Tide 2 GBA port was not developed by Chrome Studios this time. This was instead handled by another studio called Half Brick Studios, aka the same guys who made Fruit Ninja and Jetpack Joyride. Some of the most fun mobile games ever created, like they were really on top of the game when it came to mobile games in the early 2010s, but the Tide 2 GBA port was made way before them, releasing around the same time as the console part. I don't hear anyone talking about this version of the game. Even looking up online, there's so little info about it. Well, I can really only hope that it's just an overlooked game rather than one that people just don't want to remember. So let's play it. Ooh, the menu theme. It's a remix of Taiwan's menu theme. That's an interesting choice, I guess. It actually doesn't sound bad either. Being thrown into the action like the PS2 version, you are tasked to defeat Cass goons and stop it from escaping. The plot and story is pretty identical to the PS2 version, even just using screenshots from that version, which was pretty normal during this era. In terms of gameplay, it is actually very similar moveset wise. He can throw his boomerangs as his main attack and also bite. He can jump and glide. He can also shoot his boomerang straight up to hit enemies above him or below him. I do want to say that while I think Tide controls well in this game, I swear his jumping feels so inconsistent at times. Sometimes it really feels like you can jump longer than you actually can. It did feel a bit wonky to me, but that's really my only complaint regarding controls. Otherwise, it's actually pretty solid. Now, graphics wise, I do also think it looks pretty decent. I've definitely seen a lot better games on GBA, but also a lot worse. I do wish they went more with the route of how Rayman 3 handled GBA port though, having original sprites and look instead of just trying to replicate the PS2 models and put it on a handheld. Again, it looks fine, but I really think it could have looked more interesting visually. The backgrounds, however, are in 2D, and I think it looked pretty nice. The music in this game are remixes of Tide 1 and 2 soundtrack, but I was surprised that none of them sound bad. And I'm saying I'm surprised because usually GBA doesn't have the best sound chip, but I would say that none of them sound better than the main console though. I do think the music works, but I wouldn't really listen to it free time, but you know, it does the job. Now, while the music sounds okay, the sound effects here can sound crunched to hell. Some sound effects are okay, but others sound so bad. I don't get why they didn't just try and recreate some new sounds for some of these. They also used the wrong jingle when finding the Billies too. Like, that's the hell pickup sound, not the Billy sound. Boy, I sure hope someone got fired for that blunder. Now, the game being in 2D isn't the only thing that's different. New to Tide 2 is also the map design. It is a lot smaller, much faster to move around, and honestly, I think this is one thing that I think the GBA version does better. I don't mind driving around in Tide 2, but it can get really tiresome at some point. But here, it's so easy, but also quick. It doesn't waste your time. What's also new is the encounters with the lizards on the road. On the PS2 version, you would see them randomly and blow them up. But here, if you bump into them, you're sent to a minigame where you have to drive and smash their bikes. This is actually really cool. Not only do you get money for doing this, but it's also just really fun and addictive. Plus, it also makes you feel hardcore as fuck. The levels themselves are really fun to explore. I was really expecting them to be bland and not interesting, but I find myself liking a lot of them. They usually have good level design with collectibles to find. But the best part for me is that the levels don't overstay the welcome. The level takes like 3 to 4 minutes each to beat, which I think is a good thing. One of my favorite levels was the factory one, not only because I think it's visually one of the most unique in the game, but it was also just really fun to explore, with the ending being that you had to run out the levels as fast as possible because everything is exploding. They do adapt several side quests from Taiwan 1 and 2 and put them as main quests in these levels, like fixing the generators in the swamp level or herding all the crocodiles back to their owner. One of my favorite missions in the game was one of the last, when there's a bunch of koalas in the level and you need to find the 8 spies. They took one of the collectibles in Thai 2 and made it a mission in one of the levels, and I found that just really cool. Every level felt unique and fun to explore, despite them really only having like a few themed areas. The beach, the swamp, the mountains and the factories. Despite the small amount of level themes, again they do try to make each level unique with different level designs and missions, so I think it does work in the end. Plus the console version was exactly the same, so. I love whenever there's a game over because Ty is sitting there just being so sad. Like, look at him, he's so devastated. You know, I try my best, but it's not good enough. I can't do this. I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. In this game, you can also get the different boomerangs from the PS2 version. They function like you would think in 2D, though the Megarang is really overpowered in this game. Like, it was really strong in the PS2 version, but here, it's like a homing missile with enemies nearby. It makes so many enemies a complete joke to fight against, but it was also just really fun to use. And the Death Rang is just as amazing here as it was in the PS2 version. Whenever you deal with a mission in one area, the cast icon will have a yellow outline and you can fight the boss. The bosses are exactly like the PS2 version, only that it's in 2D. And you know, they're okay, they're decently fun, but some of them are just easy in this version. Like fluffy bosses are so quick. Like it took me 20 seconds to beat her encounters other than the last one. But they even make Robotai a boss in the game, which I thought was really cool. But with the Omega Rang, this fight was a non-issue. Like again, the Omega Rang is really overpowered. Just like in the PS2 version, you can control the bunyips and they are not that fun to use in this version, to be honest. Outside of the blue bunyip, they just don't feel fun to use. The red one feels slow and not as strong as before. The yellow one is slow but only used for these block puzzles that aren't even puzzles, it's just throw this block over here. But the blue one is still fun to use though, because it feels good to use. But there's also a new bunyip that was added in this game and it was the coolest one yet. One that could fucking fly and shoot rockets. Like holy, this thing was so fun to use. I was so happy when I saw this. I sat there thinking about the levels that would use this absolute beast of a bunyip, but then they pulled the rug under my feet. This one is only used for one level and a tiny section for another. That's it. I don't get it. Why would you make such an awesome machine and only make it usable in like 1.5 level? That's so stupid. This was by far the most disappointing part about the game. With most of the game covered, let's get to the end of this. Cass has kidnapped all the townsfolk just like the PS2 version, and now Ty has to rescue them and stop his plans. You also get the Shadow Bunyip in this version, but this time you go there alone without Sasha or Sly. It is also really fun to use in this version. This level acts as a boss rush, but damn dude, with the Shadow Bunyip, these are so easy to defeat. Like I really felt like a god. But in the end, Cass is the last boss to fight. He's definitely the toughest boss in the game, and by toughest I mean he's slightly tougher than rest. He still went down pretty quickly. So with Cass defeated, the town is safe again and Ty and Sasha and Sly are crowned heroes. Wait, what the fuck did Sly do here? I mean, Sasha drove me around at least. All Sly did was sell boomerangs. What a bum, dude. And with that, the credits roll with the cast rolling around and you're being able to beat the absolute living shit out of him. The end. I'm really surprised by how much I like this version. When going in, I was really expecting it to be just an average game. Nothing amazing, but it turned out to be a really solid game with its own flair. I'm really happy I checked this version out. I can easily recommend this to not only Thai fans, but to platformer fans in general. This was a really good time. Well, that took a while, but Thai 2 is finally done. I'm glad I managed to go into a deep dive into this game, but I'm even more glad knowing that it's still so great. And that it has a pretty good Game Boy Advance port. I hope you all enjoyed this video, and at some point I do want to make a video on the sequel and its Game Boy Advance version. It looks really fun, so I'm pretty excited to try it out. I thank you all so much for watching and I'll see you later. Bye.